And we're back, and we are thankful that you are here today, that you continue to take this journey with us. So, Triple Play, we're excited, Scott and I. And so, number one, keep subscribing, keep sharing, keep forwarding, keep putting it out there. When you when you share it out on social media, when you encourage your family and friends to check us out, to also like and subscribe, that all helps us. We've been seeing a lot of responses, so we appreciate that. Continue it, guys, because that helps us to be able to do this more and more. I have had a couple questions too in the past week. How many times are we going to do this? Well, very clearly, we're trying to drop these. We're trying to record these every Tuesday and Thursday and drop them for you guys by Wednesday and Friday. So keep an eye out about that time frame. You should be able to hopefully wake up each Wednesday and Friday and catch the newest episodes. One more thing, just in the house cleaning of that area. We are officially on just about every podcast format. So if you listen to iTunes, I've had 3 or 4 friends try to throw some weird ones at me lately, and we were on there. So I was like, I have no idea who that is. Let's check it out. So we checked it out. Sure enough, Scott, we're on them.
Let's do it. Let's go, guys. Let's go.
Exactly. So I want to also make a couple other mentions. We want to continue to thank Andy McCollum for his support of the show. And if you are considering doing any type of investing or just want somebody to run by and take a look at all your stuff, him and his team are available at Resource One. So please consider checking that out. Number 2, Scott, is the our opener and our logo and a lot of that stuff has been done by a group called CS Design. They're doing a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. We're going to soon have a website. So if you need any type of web support, any type of office support from a technology point of view, check out CS Design, because those guys, I mean, they're taking care of us, obviously. I've been using them for some time and been very, very happy with their services. So keep support us by supporting them too.
Anything you don't know, they'll know.
Yeah,
right.
Pretty much. Absolutely. I'm constantly going to them. So I appreciate people whose talents are beyond mine. So for sure. So, all right, guys. Well, let's get into today's stuff. First of all, since you missed Andy's interview the other night.
I know. That's my fault. Sorry.
That's okay. But I still want to real quickly just ask you, as we're looking at the playoffs, we're just about ready to see the second round. Yep. You look at your cheat sheet there.
Yep.
I want to know who you think. So we got the Jags and KC.
Ooh, Jags and KC. I think that's a tough call. Jags, I mean, unbelievable half.
Yeah, they came back that second half. Yeah, really the third.
They got fast that second half, didn't they?
You know, what was interesting about that, too, is that I saw a clip where Mahomes was praising him. He said, man, that was some of the best football I've seen, which, I mean, that's pretty cool when your competitor on the other side is you know, giving you some props. And Mahomes has made a name for himself, obviously. So that
my favorite video I've seen from that is a guy took a nap at halftime, Chargers fan, and his buddy woke him up at the end when the final thing was up, and you see him wake up. He gets up and he just stares at. He doesn't know if it's real, if it's fake, for minutes. He's distraught.
That's awesome.
All right, I'm gonna go KC just because they're a better team.
All right, next one. This is a tough one. The Bengals and the Bills. Man, Bills were definitely favorites, but they close game against Miami.
Yep.
Bengals have been consistent. Good old Joe Burrows. We talked about him.
Yeah, Joe Burrows is my guy.
Okay.
I'm gonna pick him till probably they run into KC.
All right, so Bengals there. How about you said you're a New York fan, but they're playing the Eagles. Eagles are tough. They had the bye week. Will that pay off? They've been consistent. Who are you going to go with?
I think the Eagles are going to smash them. Same reason. They're just a better team.
Yeah, they are a better team, but I will say this. New York looked really good in that game. So, I mean, they played that way. Another team that looked really good, had you asked me prior to that last game how I thought they were going to do, Cowboys, San Francisco, I would have thought San Francisco over the Cowboys, but Dak really seems poised. If he repeats that play this week, I think they have a really good shot at a lot of good stuff. But who do you choose on those two? Interesting thing about
pick tie. There's no ties in the postseason.
No, I mean the interesting thing about San Francisco is they've got 3 quarterbacks. The third one's the one playing right now.
Yeah.
But they got a couple of really good weapons. Both them and New York have this running game and passing game going, and it just seems like the quarterback. They just need somebody who can.
Well, he did his
be decent.
Job.
Yeah.
His job. The quarterback's job is to win.
Yep.
and he won. So I'm gonna go Dallas just for our local boy Zeke Elliott.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, that's good enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sticking to some football stuff here. Our first story up. Great story. J.J. Watt jersey. His jersey, it made it to the Hall of Fame before him. Isn't that awesome? I thought that was great. They put his last game jersey on display in the Hall of Fame. Guy deserves it. Let me just read you a couple things here about him because he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, okay? I mean, it's pretty much 5 Pro Bowls, 5 All-Pros, 3 defensive awards, 2017 Walter Payton Man of the Year award. I mean, just he set a standard in the game for a while there, and we even if you weren't a fan when he was either with the Texans or Cardinals, you're got to be a fan of his.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm admittedly not a huge football fan, but I always paid attention to J.J. Watt.
Yeah. He's an all-around good guy. A lot of people recognize him for the work he did in Houston after they had the big floods, and
he's a mountain of a man. I mean, imagine the statue. They're just gonna do like inch for inch. They're just gonna say, "Stand there. We're gonna measure you," and that'll be the monstrosity of a.
Yet you always see him smile when it's outside of game day. He has what I would call one of those infectious smiles. Mm-hmm. He really just has a great smile. So. Congrats, JJ. We look forward to also celebrating you again when you actually make it to the Hall of Fame. But your jersey's there. So, all right, next one, another football one. So we got Jason Myers. He just got the second largest contract for a kicker.
Yeah, you know what? I wish I could go back in time and just kick.
Kick?
Just hold the ball, and I'm going to just boot it and get really good at it.
I'll tell you what, 4 years, $21 million. He can kick it well.
Yep.
There's value in when you're accurate. We saw that, and we're going to talk about that towards the end of our segment, where we get into the Dallas guy who missed 7 during a playoff game. You know, so
I hope Jason Myers gets insurance on his
leg.
His leg. Yeah.
Well,
Lloyd's of London.
I tell you what, He deserves it. He's a great kicker. Congrats on that. So another good. We're kind of going through it fairly quick, but these are some good stories to talk about. Not everything needs to be controversial because we're going to get into that anyways. We're going to have some fun jarring back a little bit on some thoughts, and we've already started that prior to the broadcast when we were chatting.
We can go over this fam story real quickly too.
Oh yeah, well we're going to do that. But the next one. A hometown St. Louis Blues, and it isn't necessarily to pick on them. I would have done this on anybody, but second team from the 1967 expansion. Okay, so you got the original 6, which were Chicago, New York, Rangers, Detroit, Toronto, Boston, and Montreal. And after that, they had an expansion in 1967, and the Blues, okay, are the second from that expansion to get 2,000 wins. So
we're second best.
Second team from that expansion unit to get to 2,000 wins. So, there you go. I mean that's really an accomplishment. So congrats, to our hometown St. Louis Blues. You guys, this is an interesting team this year. For them to get good, they're going to have to get healthy.
Yep.
I mean that's really just going to be their key. It's always the key a lot of times in hockey. I mean, but it seems like when they're healthy, they're playing well. It's not really anybody hot or cold as much right now as much as health right now.
Get healthy,
yeah.
Get healthy.
They get healthy, they'll be competitive. So, all right, well, let's get into. I actually want to tackle these next couple kind of together. So we're going to do Tommy Pham and Adam Duvall kind of together.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Adam, let's start with Pham, and you said we can go over that one quick. Well. We already talked about him a whole lot, but the thing was, is you called it. We kind of both did. We both said, hey, this guy's going to get a 1-year deal, another journeyman. Somebody's going to want him because he does have talent. Who wants him? Which okay, now I'm going to bring up a precursor to this, but or something to kind of follow this. But he goes to the New York Mets, right? So, given now that we got somebody like Pham, I kept telling you before, don't be shocked if Bauer goes there. I just see that happening because it seems like they're in a win now mode, no matter character. Could be wrong, but
no, I think you're right. I think if Bauer was to land in the States, it would probably be like a team with like the Mets.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a kind of one of those things that seems to be leaning more towards that. The other guy signs up there towards him and with the Red Sox, and that's Adam Duvall.
Mm-hmm.
So we got Adam Duvall. He signs another decent contract, 1 year, $7 million. What's interesting about that is basically they're going to take one of their guys who played mostly outfield last year and move him back to the infield because of the Trevor Story injury. So that is.
Yeah, they have options. They have options. I think Adam Duvall is gonna do well there.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah, he'll do very well there. So, but the idea is that Kiki Hernandez, Boston's primary center fielder the past 2 seasons, will get most of the playing time at either second base or shortstop this year.
Yeah.
So
that's one of those guys. Kike can play anywhere, literally anywhere. I mean,
Well,
he could probably catch if you asked him.
Kind of reminds me a little bit of St. Louis's Tommy Edman. I mean, they've been playing at second, short, outfield. I mean, it seems like he just excels and he does above average anywhere you put him. So
agree. But Kike can play the outfield.
Well,
very well.
Very cool. And we got another one who also reached it, and that is Brian Anderson, another one you called. So you called all these. I mean, you kind of said these 3 are probably going to be the next ones picked. They're going to sign 1 year deals. You're going to find somebody that kind of wants them. Mm-hmm. And again, you called this one Brian Anderson with the Brewers.
Yep.
Okay. Another another guy who I think will do well in Milwaukee. That seems like a very good place for him to wind up at.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about the park as much as just the atmosphere. I think it'll be more relaxed. So.
Oh yeah, very very relaxed, low pressure, a good. I think that's a really good signing by Milwaukee. It's a good, just chill place to just get going again.
You know what was interesting, and it's not even on our thing here, but I read just this morning that another guy who kind of could use a little bit of a breather, probably not going to be in the same quite position we kind of discussed before, but is looking at possibly going to kind of a low-key type job, is Chapman. So he has been in talks to be a reliever, not a closer, for the Marlins.
Yep.
So
sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean that'd be. I thought we kind of talked about that that a place like that would be a good restart for a guy like him too. Interesting things still are brewing, and there's still a couple guys I keep waiting to hear their names. Micah Wacha and Zach Greinke still unsigned. I mean, we're not that far from spring training. I mean, it's a little ironic that we got a couple guys with that kind of.
Yeah, I would imagine those guys probably have teams that they are
talking with,
and they're just ironing out some details.
Well, all that said, congrats Tommy, congrats Adam and Brian. Some good decent contracts. I think we'll this is going to be a different year in baseball, as we already discussed with the shift and the bases. Yep. We're going to see hitters that maybe were a little perennial step up, maybe see a step. We're going to see a lot of pitchers who have been decent pitchers kind of take a step down, and maybe some elites that really struggle this year. So it's going to be this is a reshift of the game. So kind of reminds you of when hockey kind of changed a lot of its rules. And all of a sudden,
2 lines, 1 line, blue line.
Yeah.
The offsides, the icing. Yeah, that sped the game up.
Yeah.
Kept it moving. More goals.
Yep.
Same thing. Baseball. They're going to speed it up. Guys are going to be. They're not going to have to run as far to steal a base because the bases are bigger and all that shifts.
Yeah. It's gonna change things. All right. So our next one, switching to tennis. We talked about the other day that a good player may not be able to make it to the States to go. But he had a start in Australia. He got in Australia. And the guy that has had the 22 Masters Championships, Rafael Nadal. Did I say it right?
Yeah, Rafael Nadal.
Okay. He actually got out, and it really shocked a lot of people, and he didn't look like he was playing well. It looked like maybe he's a little hurt. So he is now out of the Australian Open. And then Novak actually won, and so it seems like he's maybe on pace to start his run towards number 22 and tying. So
that'd be cool.
Yeah,
I'm always amazed that these, especially in tennis, the guys that play for 15, 20 years and continually win. you're probably right. Nadal probably had like just a little injury, maybe like a little calf, something that slowed him down just enough where that guy was just good enough and had put all of his effort in and like was super focused and was able to beat him.
Yeah.
But that's amazing to me that doesn't happen more because it's one-on-one. Like if you're not 100%,
you're toast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
Well, there you go. You got two good tennis players. You got two guys. One who they're both still very, very good. One just didn't quite make it this time around. The other one, hopefully, he'll continue his path. It would be fun to see those two tied. I'd actually be cool to see them retire after 22 and be tied with each other at the top because they're both
You
they
think
dominate.
two competitors are going to do that?
No,
No.
they'll keep playing. So one of them gets a 23.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is 100%. 100%. All right. Well, let's get into, we were alluding to this earlier. We got to talk about Brett Maher, the kicker for Dallas, missing 4 in a row at one point, 7 total in the game. And yeah. But what's interesting is he'd only missed 6 all season.
Well, that's the yips for you.
Yeah,
I don't know how you get your foot disconnected from your brain.
Yeah. Well, here's what I will tell you is that according to the special teams coordinator, John Fassel, told reporters on Wednesday that he believes that he's suffering from a case of the yips, and then said that as of right now, I think it's keeping step. What is it? I think it's keep stepping up to the line and shooting the thing.
Yeah,
we
just
missed
keep doing it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I want to say his quote right. So, anyways, I think sounds like he says if you ask me, absolutely, he's going to be our starter. So
yeah, he said he has a hot hand. Let's face it, he only missed 6 kicks all season. The yips happened, so I expect a hot hand coming up.
Yeah,
but like you can't know that. I played with a guy that had the yips for a year and a half.
Who was that?
Should I say it was?
Yeah, if you want, if you don't, that's not a big deal.
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna think of his name.
Okay.
What's his name? This is so bad. I can't think of his name.
Well, I had the same thing the other day.
Withrow. It was Withrow. So this guy was a number 1 pick in spring training, pitching well. Aaron throw hits a kid in the head.
Oh wow!
Something snapped and something went haywire in his brain. He could not throw the ball 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. If he threw it, it went straight right for a year and a half.
Then he worked it out, eh?
And well, yeah, a little bit. And not really. No, not really. So for this coach to say, "Oh yeah, he'll be fine," it blows my mind that he's actually saying that instead of just saying like, "Well, we'll have to wait and see."
Right.
Because those things just don't go away. It's not like, I'm done with the yips. I'm going to be done with these. All right.
I know it's not Kevin Costner in his movie where he's fighting the yips.
No. Well, yeah, it's definitely a fight, but
yeah, I'm joking though.
Most lose it.
All right. Well, let's keep moving forward here. One that I brought up because I know you played with them.
Yeah.
But B, this is an interesting one all the way around. So, Puig, okay, Yasiel Puig, okay. He's one of those dynamic players, and in some ways he's fun to watch because he's got a lot of energy, right, as a fan.
Yeah.
But here apparently last year, I don't know. Do you know the story that he was part of an investigation? Correct. Initially was going to plead guilty, then he changed his plea right at the last minute, and it's really not even something that would be.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's like
brought up.
Yeah, it shouldn't even brought up, and it's really like a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he played over in Korea, had a great year. Okay, and then now he is talking about playing back in this MLB.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? I mean, he's still playing in Korea. You played over there.
Yeah.
He says that he was diagnosed with ADHD, PTSD, and
Dichronometria.
There you go.
Dyschronometria. We probably should have looked that up. I
There
have
you
no
go.
idea what that is.
I don't either.
I'm not laughing at the I'm just that's a big word.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I think Puig has a storied past. He came from Cuba, poverty. Who knows what happened over there. Came to Mexico for a while. Signed with the Dodgers. He's had a life.
Yeah.
So I think everything that's transpired with his career leading up to him going over to Korea was just a product of culture, baseball culture, not being taught certain faux pas in like societal faux pas,
Right.
Interpersonal no-nos, and so I think his new agent has done a lot of good things for him. And I think it's a lady, and she's been helping him out and sorting these things out. So I'm not surprised to hear that he has PTSD. I don't like that. It's not a stretch of an imagination
Right.
that happened to him. I mean, he left, uprooted his home, left, and just completely. So I would imagine that's a little traumatic. So that being said, he had a great year in Korea.
Yeah.
Really good year in Korea. Nothing happened over there. I would imagine he learned a lot about respect,
Yeah.
honor. If Bauer signs, I would expect Puig to not have an issue signing if a team thinks he's good enough.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to prove himself. Probably an invite to spring training is what he's looking at.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
try him out. Somebody who
He's
wants.
still young too. I would imagine he's probably only 30, 31 maybe.
I don't know if the on here if I got it. Let me
Yeah.
just check here.
He's pretty young, so I don't know. He's interesting. I think anybody that is actively trying to present themselves different to people at least shows something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I've kind of always been a side fan of his just because I like the energy. I've liked some of the things he did.
yeah,
It seems like he got kind of into messy messes, not necessarily bad trouble. It wasn't like he seemed to be an instigator, somebody who was prone to being. He just seems more of a guy who just seems to go with the flow, likes being liked, and wind up in bad situations more because of that.
yeah,
So-
yeah, and you don't. I say this all the time, but like imagine you coming out of high school and instead of going to
College and having your family around you and all that.
all that. Let's just say you were going to be a scientist, and the Society for Science came to you and said, "Hey, Josh, you're really good at science. We would like to pay you $30 million to come to our society and teach us about science." You would say, "That's amazing. Sign me up. Wherever you go, take me away."
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a stretch of the imagination that you would say, "I'm really good. I deserve this. I did all this. I became my own scientist." And then you kind of are okay with, I don't care what anybody else says. I got here. This is all my.
Yeah.
You're not going to tell me what to do, kind of thing. So I don't know.
What'd you think of him as a teammate? Was he a pretty good teammate?
I loved him. Yeah, I loved. I mean, he showed up late to things. Probably spoke back. At times he should have shut his mouth. But aside from that, like he was going to give 100%. So I don't.
Yeah, fun guy in the clubhouse too.
Yeah,
So
it's just a guy that just don't. You kind of are like, man, why do you keep doing that? But like also like I like you.
yeah. It's like the brother that you love that just kind of finds himself with the wrong crowd every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I trust me when I say I that's why I've always liked him. He seems like a really cool, fun guy. He just always seems to just find a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
So
And to be fair, like his name draws more intrigue. So like they're looking for these little things.
oh yeah, they want to expose it, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a big
newspaper.
headline.
Yep, you got it.
Yeah.
Well, let's move into our faith and culture because today that's going to collide with sports. Okay, we've got to bring this up because it's been all over the news stations the last few hours. Well, really the last 24-hour cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't, and I want to, you're going to kind of come from it from a player point of view. I'm going to come from it, hopefully, maybe more from a conservative biblical point of view. And let's see where our thoughts are. But let's start with the man himself, Ivan Provorov. Okay, Philadelphia Flyers defenseman. Tuesday night was LGBTQ plus # Quote, little quote things, whatever they put behind there.
Up arrow, down arrow.
Yep, you got it. Pride Night at their Wells Fargo Center. And he chose not to participate in wearing the jersey for the Pride during practice. And so afterwards, there was a bunch of reporters, obviously, that took notice of that. And he just simply, if you watch the interview, I was really trying to get the clip so we could show it, but he was very, very to the point. He basically said, I believe it's against my religion, and because of that, I chose not to participate.
Yeah.
And that was it. They asked him, what church he was part of, and he said the Orthodoxy, and then that was it. It was like, they kept trying.
End of story, right?
Well, they kept trying to bring it up. That was his end of story.
Right.
He would say, I already said what I need to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
I go back and say, I told you no more comments. So, and that was really just pretty cut and dry. And then the coach went on to say that, he doesn't press anybody. He's being true to himself and his religion. This has to do with his belief and his religion. It's one thing that I respect about Provi. He's always true to himself, and that's where we're at with that. So that's what the coach said. I thought that was fine. And but the NHL decided they would release a statement saying that they give the players the choice, so on and so forth. This is something that has continued to kind of come up over the last probably 6 years now. So I want to bring up a few of these things, and then I want to get into the discussion. But let's talk about a few more things here. So earlier this year, or last year, in the middle of the year, we've got Tampa Bay, who at that time had all the players wear logos on their uniforms and has a little patch, and 5 players chose not to. They put out a statement, and it says, a lot of it comes down to our faith, to like a faith-based decision. So it's a hard decision because ultimately we all said what we want is them to know that they are welcome and loved here. But when we put it on our bodies, I think a lot of guys decided that it's just a lifestyle that maybe, not that they look down on anybody or think differently, it's just that maybe we just don't want to encourage it if we believe in Jesus, who's encouraging us to live a lifestyle that would abstain from that behavior, just like Jesus encourages me as a heterosexual male to abstain from sex outside of the confines of marriage. It's no different. It's not judgmental. It's not looking down. It's just what we believe, the lifestyle he's encouraging us to live for our good, not to withhold. But again, we love these men and women. We care about them, and we want them to feel safe and welcome here when we're playing. So, that was their statement. So that was one. Now let's go into another one here, okay? And we've got the year before, Jonathan Isaac. He had the big BLM movement, and a lot of stuff said about him because he chose not to kneel. And he said for him, for me, black lives are supported through the gospel. All lives are supported through the gospel. We all have things that we do wrong. Sometimes it gets to a place where that we're pointing finger at who's wrong or worst, or whose wrong is seen. So I feel like the Bible tells us that we all fall short of God's glory, that this will help bring us closer together and I hope this will help bring us closer together and get us past skin color and get past anything that's on the surface that doesn't really get into the hearts of men and women. And if you want to know more, he actually put out a book called Why I Stand that goes into a lot more of the detail behind that decision, because he thought long and hard about it before doing it.
Yeah.
And then kind of one last little thing I want to bring up is Busch Stadium. Back in 2013, there was controversy here in St. Louis, and the controversy was one of the groundsmen at the back end of the pitching mound drew in his hand a little bitty cross, and somebody happened to notice a few years after this. This had been going on apparently for a long time, and some gentleman finally noticed that somebody had put like a cross on there.
I guarantee you he was not a gentleman.
Probably not. And so he sat down and with ownership and had them and asked them to remove it, and so they eventually did. They moved it fairly quickly actually. And so that was another instance kind of on the opposite side of it where they didn't want to promote things. So let's back up here. And then the other thing I want to point out with Ivan, okay, and I also want to point out with the Tampa Bays is that there's pressures coming from other than just the team, okay? So in the case of Ivan, I'm going to use one of our hometown writers here in St. Louis, Benjamin Hockman, who wrote to me kind of a really rude tweet. I mean, obviously this guy he wasn't judging anybody. He said, I don't judge them. You know, he just said that I'm religious and I don't support. And so he calls him a jerk. He says Ivan is a jerk, but Flyers coach John Tortorella is just as complicit with his cruelness and with Provorov's statement made by not wearing the Pride logo. Torts prides himself as being a tough coach. Well, he looks off last night. Apparently, the patch is what makes the difference, or the clothing. And then I want to go to another one because Benjamin's not alone. And I'm picking on some St. Louis guys just because they're comfortably knowing the articles.
Yeah.
But
he uses the word complicit, like they were conspiring to like do something nefarious against some like that. Like it's not.
Yeah,
it's just I don't agree. Like, leave me alone. Why can't that be the end? Leave me alone. I don't agree. Leave me alone. Why does he have to?
Well, I want to get into that a little more because
why does Benjamin care so much about what somebody else does or doesn't do?
Let me ask you this: why would another baseball player on another team care about what 5 other players on another team do about wearing a patch? Right? I mean, so we get Tampa Bay. We already gone over the story. Jack Flaherty puts this after TMZ Sports puts Tampa Bay Ray players refused to wear the gay pride logo on their uniforms this weekend, saying that religious beliefs wouldn't allow it. But they also saying that they accept everyone. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Jack Flaherty puts absolute joke. Okay. And then immediately, if you go down a few tweets on his Twitter, you'll see that he is supporting the gay pride stuff at Busch Stadium.
Yeah.
Very heavily. So my point of that is not to necessarily pick on a Jack Flaherty as much as just to point out that there are pressures to players, both external and internal, to these decisions right now that are going on. I mean, this is something that is continuing to pop up. I mean, we congratulate people, and obviously Jonathan Isaac is somebody who has gotten a lot of praise, and I thought he did well. If you haven't read his book, Why I Stand, I thought he went, instead of trying to explain it in a sentence, he put it in a book and said, there's much more to the story that I can ever give in a quick little 20-second interview.
Yeah.
My decision and my conscience there. But my question to you goes back to this, okay? Obviously, we're seeing more and more of this. Should teams be able to make players in sports wear an emblem or symbol that runs counter to a person's belief system? And I often wonder, like, when I read these quotes like a Jack Flaherty or a Benjamin Hockman, how would they feel if, let's say, we were having Jewish night and they had all the players in unity to support their fellow Israeli people wear the Star of David on their uniform, especially if they were, let's say, Muslim,
Well, that wouldn't happen. And there would be no backlash if a Muslim said, I don't want to wear the Star of David on my sleeve. That's the whole point. Is if you're a Christian, it comes with the territory. If you decide something and it's counterintuitive, or if it's counter to what the world says, you will be mocked, persecuted, belittled, made fun of. It happened to me all the time on the bench when I would share the gospel or talk about my beliefs. It's not just like, I disagree with you. It's like, I disagree with you and now I want to make you feel small.
Yeah.
So anything that is counter to the world, anything that goes against what the world said, the world gets upset.
Well, that is true.
Because the world has its own God.
Well, that all those things are true. I 100% agree with that. So
should the team be forced? No, absolutely not. And why does as a business, why are you even bringing up something that has nothing to do with the business?
Yeah, I mean, I get having like nights to around themes because that draws people in.
Yeah.
So like a gay pride night, I was part of Christian Family Day. In fact, we're going to have, if you haven't seen us talk about it yet, you're going to hear over the next week Judy Bowen's interview that we're going to be doing, who is the founder of the one here in St. Louis and has an incredible story. But so a little plug-in for that's coming. But even more than that, though, I mean, again, I thought that was good to have theme nights, and I have no problem with Gay Pride Night in the sense that, I mean, they have the same rights as anybody else. It's a free country, and if I was a business like the Cardinals or, Major League Baseball, right, I mean, you would want to encourage people to come down and support your team, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that stuff, but it's when they try to personalize it to the players is what I find very interesting, because they've got to know that not every player agrees with these things.
No, you can't. You have to know that. Like, you can't. What is Benjamin expecting? Is he like homogeny within the society where everybody thinks the same?
Well, apparently he
What
does.
Does he want?
Well, he wants everybody to conform to the leftist agenda.
And then what?
Then what? He is the prime example of why I stopped getting the sports section of our local St. Louis Post-Dispatch and STL Today. I used to actually go to it religiously. And then he came in with a couple of guys, and we saw Bernie Michaelis and a few of the others leave. And when that happened, I didn't really like the Post anyways. And at that point, I haven't been on STL Today in forever. Yeah. I mean, I see their stuff pop up on Twitter, and most of the time I cringe because it's more political. It's kind of like watching ESPN. When you watched ESPN 20 years ago, it was an enjoyable TV station. They had a real commentary. Today, it's nothing but political agenda. And
that's the climate of the U.S. That's everything in basically the world. If I had this conversation with one of my buddies a couple weeks ago. I said if I tweeted anything, or somebody famous tweeted anything, if they just tweeted water, just the word water, I guarantee you on that timeline it would divulge into something political.
Oh, 100%.
Without it, 100%. Somebody would say something, and then it would be water sustainability, and then it would turn into political just by having a group of people look at a word.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You could do that with anything. Cereal boxes. It would turn into somehow it's racist. Anything that is it's just political. Everything is political.
Well, we talked about the last one. Highways are political, right? Because they're racist, right?
Everything.
And it's gotten to be where you just can't. There used to be, and I was telling somebody this the other day, myself in a conversation, it used to be that you could really enjoy sports because it was a place where people met, where no matter what your religion, no matter what your politics were, you could kind of come together as a common people around a common thing of baseball or football or hockey. And I feel like it's getting back there to some degree, but I felt like, especially the last 3 or 4 years, it became very tough to do that because it seemed to get more and more political and all these things. We're actually seeing a lot of teams pull back from that right now. You've seen the NBA pull back. You've seen football pull back because, just like myself, many other people were turned off on it. And if you're trying to be a successful business, growing your model, paying your players more money, you've got to bring more people and more revenue. And you don't do that when you don't
include everybody.
Right. When you're not providing a service that everybody wants to watch. And again, if I wanted to go to hear a sermon, I go to church, right? So in the same vein, I wouldn't expect somebody to preach at Busch Stadium during a baseball game. I don't expect to have any political or anything else.
Okay, I wish I could. If I went to Benjamin and I said, "Hey, Benjamin, I own the paper that you write for. I would like for you to write a piece on how Jesus is God and he came down in human form and went up on Calvary and lived a perfect life and died for your sins and rose again on the third day. And I want you to make it so that the readers really believe the story." Do you think Benjamin would write that story?
No.
Okay, so then shut up.
Yeah.
Then shut your mouth.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to
right. He doesn't want them to be having belief systems and having morals and values. He wants everybody to have his morals and values. That's the only belief system available, is the one that Benjamin puts out there. Right. And absolutely, he's he's the reason why sports is unenjoyable nowadays. Yeah. So
I don't know. Report. Just report.
Yeah.
Report sports.
That's what we want. My favorite local reporter continues to be Bernie Michaelis. Now, every now and then he'll put something in there about a personal thing, but most of the time it's the report and it's the facts. And nobody do I value their opinion around St. Louis when it comes to the St. Louis sports more than his. Why? Because he doesn't get into all these other. He puts out here. We're reading an article before you walked in today on possible trades for the Cardinals, and he laid out the case for who the Cardinals could, who do we really have that we could trade for a quality pitcher like Lopez?
Mm-hmm.
And he was, here's the positives and negatives. Would this get you somebody like that? Probably not. Would this do it? Well, maybe, but then what are you giving up? He's just a facts guy,
Yeah,
Put the
I like
numbers, let
facts,
him number. Yeah, give the
And-
facts.
Gosh, man, just take a second. Like, take inventory. Like, why? Why do you care so much to have other people conform to your what you like? I don't know. Just irks me.
Well, I think it irks a lot of people. I think believers are getting the brunt of it more and more. This stuff didn't happen 20, 25 years ago. In fact, it used to be if a guy kind of came out and said, I'm a Christian, they were almost celebrated to some degree in American society. And now, or if they were a patriot, let's say they were very pro-American, they would be uplifted. And then, somewhere along the shift with Colin Kaepernick and all that stuff, we've seen now the decline of the American hero. Nobody can be a hero. Nobody can.
Only victims.
Yeah, everybody's
Victims
got.
are heroes.
That's right.
Victims are heroes. Yeah.
And the more victimized you are, the more hero you are. So if you hit these rings of certain victimization, then you are uplifted by your status per se of victimization. So absolutely, it's quite intriguing where we're at. And the question, I go back and say, and I kind of was bringing this up to you before we started. Where as Christians do we softly? I don't think we need to go in. Jesus was full of law, but he was sternful. I mean, where do we start to have that pushback on society of some of these things as a group? Do we start to push back gently and say, as believers, kind of like Jonathan Isaacs, he stood right, but maybe other believers should have stood with him.
Yeah. I think what I alluded to earlier is I think as a society, I think most people know the stance of Christians on certain subjects. I think as a whole, we need to do a job of like, but why, or how does that look? Not like as a Christian, we think that being homosexual is a sin, just like lying is a sin. Okay, so how does that relate in society? Well, I can say I don't agree with what you're doing,
but I don't hate you.
But I have zero hate in my heart. I literally don't care that you're doing that. But this is what I think is going to happen if you continue this.
Yeah. I used to use that one, that homosexuality thing. I used to tell people it would be like having an affair. Okay, if I had a friend of mine having an affair, would that mean that he wouldn't be my friend?
Right, and as,
would it be
as a society, nobody would demonize you for speaking out against that about purity in the marriage.
Yeah,
nobody would be like, "Oh, you're a bigot," but when that line is crossed, it becomes a sin, and so that's why you're speaking out of that.
Yeah, I used to, and that's the way I would compare it. I would always tell people that in my mind, homosexuality is just like if I have a friend who's having an affair, who went through a divorce, to go find an affair, basically. Any of those type of things are all within the same thing. They're sexual sins, they're against the body. Most of the time, there's a lot more behind them too. I mean, okay, it could be selfish wants, it could be selfish desires of some sort. But at the heart of it, is that it's a sin. Yep. And but does that stop us? Because, and just like you, I think you were saying this, is we can disagree with somebody's lifestyle, but just because you disagree with somebody, that doesn't mean that you hate them. And these people continue to.
And the opposite is really true.
Absolutely, you're actually compassionate and loving towards them, and you love nothing more than to see them turn from that and be and come into a right relationship with Christ.
Right.
So,
but. Yeah, I don't know how to articulate this, but I think people like Benjamin are offended by the fact that we still call it wrong.
Yeah,
I don't know. It'd be like if they said lying was good, and we said no, lying's not bad. They can't. I don't know. They can't. I don't know how to say it.
Well, I think what you're saying is guys like him. First of all. I believe our society has lost moral absolutes. So there was a guy named Josh McDowell there in the 80s who warned that within 20 years that moral absolutes would be gone. As Christians, a lot of people did not heed those words. He was actually prophetic at the time. And I say that in the sense of he foresaw what was going to happen, and it 100% happened. We got into the 2000s, and we started having these big moral shifts about what moral absolutes were. I actually think that Josh McDowell didn't identify the root issue. I would say the root issue of that was when we started to remove God from the schools and other places. Not that we had to be preaching in there, okay? But if you go back and look at even like the prayer that they took out of school back then, that was a very generic prayer. It was something to the effect of, God, we pray for our country, we pray for our administration and teachers, and we pray for the students. Amen. And that's what God. It didn't even say Jesus. I literally went back and read this, and it was very, very similar to what I just said. And I'm telling you, that's what got prayer kicked out of school, which is very odd, because wouldn't you want somebody to say something like that? Even if you aren't religious, I have never had a non-religious person say, please don't pray for me. In fact, normally the opposite happens. When they're going through something, they're struggling, they're full of anxiety or whatever, they'll say, I'm not religious, I don't believe in God, but if you can still pray for me in case there is one, type of thing.
Yeah.
And so I just found that very odd that they didn't make people bow or anything like that. It was just read over the intercom. But I think when we started to remove that, then it had to be replaced with something. And I think that's what you see today. You see that as you walk down any public school, any hallway of any major place, you see slogans of humanism, which is, you can do it, be your best. They're all around you and pointed towards you as being your own God and your own ability, which means then you can interpret your own right and wrong, which is why even on the left side, when you deal with these people who are on the leftist side, the shifting ground is always shifting. Whatever's right and wrong today might be different tomorrow, right? I mean, just because of this or that, their ground is constantly shifting because they're building their house, as the Bible would say, on sand. It's just constantly shifting around because there's no moral absolutes. There's no truth as to what they do. Every good society, Jewish, Judeo-Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhism, all those societies that thrived had a belief system and some version of the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not steal. Some very basic tenets of life that everybody agreed on. Mm-hmm. Today, there are no basic tenets of life. Mm-hmm. You've got a belief system over here on the right, okay, of conservatism, and you have this ever-shifting ground over here that even whatever rules they say are today, they're going to change tomorrow.
Right. I
mean, they're constantly shifting. Well, how do you put any stakes in the ground or teach anybody truth when the truth, and most of their truth isn't even based on any facts? I mean, when boys can be girls and girls can be boys, or when I was growing up, we were talking about homosexuality. They kept saying we were going to find the gay gene. Well, they never found it.
Right.
So now they just say it is what it is. They don't even try to explain that there's any science behind it. There is no science behind it. It's just they're born that way, right? Because that's much easier to sell without giving any real facts. Okay.
Well, there's zero ownership. They don't have to take the blame, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So
and they don't got to answer the question. Right. They don't have to stand up to hard facts and knowledge, right? And so we consistently see that. In society pushing that. And I think as believers, as sports players, we've got to in love continue to push back against that. Mm-hmm. Without I don't think we intentionally go in with swords and daggers. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we're not trying to cause big fights but I think in teaching the truth, one person at a time. I always ask people, who are you discipling? Are you just, it even starts at home. Are you discipling your own kids and your own wife? Mm-hmm. Because the best training ground for winning over the cultural battle and teaching these right and wrongs starts in the home. Yeah. Getting the families right. I mean, a lot of this also, if you look at the slide of the family, the no-fault divorce, there are many, many things that contribute to where we're at today. It wasn't just taking prayer out of school. It wasn't just the Cardinals stopping a cross on the field. These were all baby steps of things that kept happening over a period of time. And so I don't think the cultural war is going to be won tomorrow, but I do think that what we can do is share the gospel, continue to encourage people, and not only share the gospel, because I run into people all the time who are saved but are still confused with truth because they're not discipled. They'll claim to know God, and I don't doubt that they know God. I don't doubt their conversion. But when I start talking to them, they seem very confused, and I'll ask, well, are you part of a men's Bible study? Well, no, I'm too busy for that. Where's God in your priority list? I mean, how do you expect that you're going to grow and be somebody who bears good fruit, as the Bible says, if you're not connected and learning and growing? I mean, you talked earlier about a scientist. How would you be a good scientist if you didn't learn science? It doesn't just happen, right?
Right.
Well, and then you get these people who claim
Except
to be...
for you, because you got drafted out of high school for this Society for Science.
Exactly.
30 million.
Well,
I'm joking. Go ahead.
No, but I mean, my point is that you kind of get into these these areas of life where we need to encourage people to get discipled, because when they're not discipled, then these are the people. Then they go to like MSNBC for truth, or CNN, or Fox News for truth, and they're not going to biblical truth.
Parable of the seeds.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it falls on the land, and the heat causes it to shrivel up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and that goes back to, but I think that as believers, we need to do our part in encouraging people to do that.
Yep.
So, and are you doing it yourself? So. As you were walking in today, I was reading my book for tomorrow where I'm meeting with a young man. So, I think these are important things that we need to encourage. And again, the culture shift won't be won overnight, but we can do it one person at a time, one heart at a time, loving people, meeting them where they are, encouraging them. And then don't just say, hey, say a prayer and you're saved, but literally walking with them to understand what that means to walk as Jesus walked. So,
yeah.
And to walk in those footsteps that he set before us. Well, let's get to our scripture today. I want to end on this because I think this kind of wraps up this whole discussion, because this is packed full of meat. This is a very impactful point of scripture. Why don't you read the first 6 verses, and I'll end us with the last 7.
First 6 verses, Ephesians 5, 1 through 13.
Yep.
I'm going to stop at... is this the whole thing? Or because there's no verses in there. That's why.
Oh, yeah. I think I took those out, didn't I?
All right.
Once
you just say, stop! When do you want me to stop? All right?
No, why don't you just read to where...
Just read the whole thing. How about that?
Okay, go for it.
Therefore be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love, just as Christ also loved you and gave himself up for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God as a fragrant aroma. But immorality of any impurity or greed must not even be named among you, as is proper among the saints. And there must be no filthiness or silly talk or coarse jesting, which is not fitting, but rather giving of thanks. For this you know with certainty, that no immoral or impure person or covetous man who is an idolater has an inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. Can I just pause there?
Yeah.
I think part of the, just going back of this whole issue we were just speaking to earlier, is that when people hear that, they think, well, I'm pretty impure, I'm pretty covetous. Does that mean there's no inheritance for me? And I think that makes them think like, no, I don't want that to be true, so I'm going to ignore it. Well, the truth is, you can be, and you are not those things as soon as you accept Christ and as your Savior.
Absolutely.
And you believe it in your heart. As soon as you do that, God the Father does not see you as immoral or impure or greedy, or He sees you as He sees Christ. And so those things fall off of you. And so that's the encouraging part. That's the gist of what these Christians that are playing and saying, I don't want to partake in this, and don't take it as us hating you. In fact, the opposite is true, and you don't have to be associated with this if you accept Christ. All of that is counted as nothing. So, anyways, let me continue.
That is 100% true, buddy.
All right.
Good words there.
All right. I forgot I lost my spot. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. Therefore do not be partakers with them, for you were formerly of darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light, for the fruit of life consists in all goodness and righteousness and truth, trying to learn what is pleasing to the Lord. Do not participate in the unfruitful deeds of darkness, but instead expose them. For it is disgraceful even to speak of these things which are done by them in secret, but all things become visible when they are exposed to the light.
Yep.
This is my favorite. For everything that becomes visible is light.
Amen.
Little science thing that God dropped in His Word thousands of years ago that scientists just discovered within the last century. I don't know. It's pretty cool.
No, 100%, buddy. 100%. Well, as you saw, there's a lot to dive in onto that. I think ultimately, this has been a good episode for us to kind of flesh some of this out a little bit, and maybe in our own minds, hopefully in yours. And if you have questions on this, please drop us some comments, give us some feedback on the show, on any questions you have, anything you'd like to see us talk about. We love to chat.
Yeah. Eventually, I think we would want to do a live stream, sort of Q&A kind of thing in the future.
Yeah.
Where you guys can, type in, text us. We'll answer your questions on air, and maybe we'll just have a whole episode of what you want to hear.
Yeah. I think that'd be great.
Okay.
I think so. All right, guys. Well, with that, thanks for checking out Triple Play again today. If you haven't done it already, make sure you like, subscribe. All of that is what we need to continue to operate and do the things that we need to do. And this is us thanking you.
Thank you. You're safe